It's Friday night. I'm in a new location this time. A different basement in Kansas City. And it's time for all video game music. Welcome back to episode 51. You might think you've been here before, but trust me, it's different this time. Let's listen to some music. Here's a game I played at a pizza place with my daughter. She enjoyed it quite a bit, so did I. You might have heard of it. It's a brand new game that's been out for a long time. In terms of this show, it's brand new. It's called Doodle Jump. Let's hear it. At the top of the show, we heard Metroid Fusion versus Cyclops. And then we heard the aforementioned Doodle Jump arcade game. And that was Faster Than Light. And then we heard a song from Bubble Buster, BGM 1. And after that, we heard Firepower 2000, Super Nintendo, a Sunsoft game. What do you think I was going to call it, eh? That was a game I rented way back in the day. On the same weekend that I also rented Super Turrican and the movie Leap of Faith, starring Steve Martin from Blockbuster Video. And speaking of Turricans, here's Stage 1 of Mega Turrican for Sega Genesis.
Canal 51 de Telemundo. A continuación, Noticiero 51.
Miles de presos políticos cubanos podrían ser puestos en libertad próximamente.
Y la segunda parte de la serie Víctimas Inocentes sobre los niños y el AIDS. Entre tanto, el diario The Fort Lauderdale News dijo que un vocero de la delegación cubana en Ginebra dijo que mañana se iba a hacer un importante anuncio en Cuba, pero no dio más detalles.
Por otra parte de nuestra área, un escape de gas causó la evacuación hoy de un hotel y la congestión del tránsito por casi una hora cerca del aeropuerto internacional.
command. You're breaking up.
I got it covered here. You're clear, Caterson.
Rasabi, jump in.
Let's hoof it, people.
Clean sweep to command. We've lost radio.
I think the show was infiltrated by some fellas with their Citizens Band radios. We're just trying to listen to this intense music, man. You gotta keep talking over it? God damn it. Anyway, that was Area 51 arcade game. I played that quite a lot back in the day. And before that, Strider for Nintendo Entertainment System. I played that quite a bit back in the day. That was Kazakhstan, or Kazakh enemy base theme. And before that, Deltarune. That was a request from Angry Musicman. Deltarune Chapter 2, Attack of the Killer Queen. Or, as Maja would say, was Deltarune was a chapter 2, killer clowns from outer space, Maja. And I failed to mention earlier in the show, Kart Fury Championship Racing Track 6 that was played right around the beginning. And coming up next, we have a requirement. Mr. David Wise, a man whom we celebrate every week on this show. And this week, it's a classic composition that a lot of us are familiar with. Some of us are so familiar with it that we might have heard it a week ago, and we don't want to hear it again. But we're gonna, at least us who are still listening, Mr. David Wise with the swing music from level 1 of Donkey Kong Country. It's very possible that you never heard this in its entirety if you played this game successfully. So let's all pause and just listen to the song. Island Swing.
East of the Rockies, you're on the air.
Hi, Art. This is Brian.
Hi, Brian.
Hello. You didn't disconnect me before, did you?
Were you on earlier tonight?
No, not, towards the end of the last hour, you said, East of the Rockies, you're on the air, and your voice was immediately replaced by the operator saying, your party has not connected.
Oh, well, see, as you can now tell, I don't screen calls. So
Right.
what happened, obviously, was that I answered the phone just at the very instant that you had been ringing as long as they were going to let you ring.
Yeah.
And so that occurs, obviously, sometimes I go to a line and it's dead and nobody's there, and that's what's happened. You know, we just were on the cusp there. Anyway, I'm glad you made it back through.
Yeah, you got all my paranoia buttons running. I always get very nervous when I call you. I'm Brian. I hung up on you last week.
I see.
And I just figured, damn the torpedoes, I'll just do this and let the chips fall where they will.
All right.
Everybody, I am the Area 51 caller. That's my statement, and let you or whatever tear it apart.
You claim you're the Area 51?
I am the man.
How do you account for the fact, Area 51 caller,
Okay.
that part of the way through your spiel, the satellite went down?
I have no idea, and it scared the heebie-jeebies out of me that night. I've called a number of times on your specialty line nights doing different, kind of wacky characters, and that's all that one was supposed to be. And if the call had been completed, it would have been ancient history by now.
Has it occurred to you, as Barbara Marx Hubbard suggested tonight, that perhaps, if you're really what you say you are, you created the reality of the rest of the situation and took down my satellite?
That scares the heebie-jeebies out of me, because it means that what I was saying was somehow correct, and it was fabrication, kind of
creating a reality.
Yeah, if that was the case, I humbly apologize to you, because I love your show, and the last thing I would ever want to do is
Knock
tear
me
you
off the air.
So what can I do to prove my claim here?
Well, I guess you could give us a little of what you gave us then, so that we could hear it and know it to be you.
Are you sure you want me to do that, Art?
I'm positive.
Don't, Art, please. I don't want you to ask me to do this. If I start doing that guy,
You're right about that. Now, let's just take that little sample that you just gave us so that we don't alter some sort of hard little reality here at the end of the program, and we'll let the callers be the judge.
Okay.
All right?
I thank you for this opportunity. This has just been driving me bananas for months, and I didn't know what you wanted me to do. I knew it was very difficult for me to prove to you. But I just thank you for your patience in dealing with me up to this time.
All right, it's quite all right. Thank you. Fritz in Phoenix, as a matter of fact, called and said, oh, yes, that's him. Somebody else said, oh, no. Now he has done his little Area 51 caller IMO, or the real thing, depending on what you think. And so we'll leave it up to all of you. That is what you think.
Well, that's starting over. What an odd occurrence on tonight's episode of Oops, All Video Game Music. It's very odd that that would start over. Well, that was from Akumajo Dracula for the $68,000 pyramid computer. That's the load background music. Folks, that game has a lot of great music. And, here's the part of the show where I say, I like that one a lot. Before that, we had arcade game music by Capcom, UN Squadron, aka Area 88, Round 8, Maritime, and before that, oh dear, what did we have? We had Thunder Fox, a Taito arcade game. Very interesting game with very interesting music. And coming up next, let's hear some music from Metroid Fusion. We opened the show with this game, and things have been heating up throughout the show. Mr. David Lee Roth once said, "Things get a little bit hot tonight." It's time to restart the cooling unit. Timer mission. Time for timer. It's a wheel of cheese. Time for timer. You remember that? I know a guy who remembers that. Metroid Fusion. Here we go. Here we go on Oops, All Video Game Music. Thanks for listening. Here we go. Here's another song.
Wake up, Bert. 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 Hey, Bert. Wake up, Bert. Bert. Come on, rise and shine, Bert. Crazy's looking good here. Sir, hey, pal, excuse me, senor, perdone-moi, por favor. Where am I?
Just relax, we will not hurt you. You're on our spaceship.
Oh, gracias. Muchas gracias. I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. I'm on a spaceship. You speak English?
Of course. We have studied you Earth people for a long time. We speak all your languages fluently. We read and write most of them. We also disco.
You guys, I love this. I can't wait to get back to Earth. Wait till Mary hears this. She thinks I'm crazy. Oh. Listen, if you guys are finished here, I'd like to get going. But, hey, let's keep in touch.
I'm afraid we cannot let you go just yet.
Well, what do you need, another 5, 10, 15 minutes? You got it. Ask me. Anything you want to know, I'll tell you. If I could be home for dinner, it would be nice.
I'm afraid you will not be going home for dinner.
I won't?
No.
Oh, hey, listen, no, pal. Wait a minute, pal. I gotta go. My wife's gonna be worried sick here.
No, she will not. You see, we are sending down a replica of you.
What? What are you talking about?
While you're unconscious, We tapped into your chromosome key. We can now produce an exact copy of you.
You made another Burt Campbell?
That is right. He's your double. Your wife will never know he is not you.
My double. I love it. This is terrific. Let me see my double.
Here he is.
She'll know.
Oh, no. You see, he has not been transformed yet. He will enter your duplicate body, and we will beam him down. He will look exactly like you. Your wife will never know.
What do you mean? You mean Mary's going to think that he's really me?
Yes.
Why is he jumping up and down like that?
It is nothing.
No, come on. What's the matter with him?
He is just a little excited.
Yeah, well, about what?
Going down to Earth, living in your house.
Oh, wait, you're not going to let him, I mean, he's not going to...
Sleep with your wife? Why do you think he's jumping up and down? He has not had sex in 2,000 years.
Esper Dream 2 by Konami. That's not what that was, but before that, earlier, featuring the VRC6 chip for the Famicom. And we heard some Burt Campbell on the alien spaceship. Can you guess who was doing that alien voice? Don't Google it. Just guess. Did you Google it? It's Robert Englund. How about that, eh? Well, thanks for tuning in to this episode. You adjusted your dial. You tuned out all the hogwash. You tuned out all the horseradish. You tuned out all of the kimchi. And you got this. Congratulations. Thanks for listening. And this is going to conclude episode 51 of Oops. Accidentally all video game music. We're going to leave you with one last song, as we do on this show. If you tuned in to the ill-fated episode a week ago, in which I fell asleep, then you didn't hear this song because it didn't get played. Also, there were some other songs tonight that were new. I changed it up a bit. Gonna leave you tonight with a song. Oh wait, we got 2 more songs. I'm sorry, folks. Hold the press. Or the presses. Here's a song by Chris Hulsbeck. For the time being, let's wind down with this one. It's from Jim Power. Thanks for tuning in tonight, folks. As always, it's been fun. We'll see you next week for an all-new episode of Oops, All Video Game Music. And until next time, for God's sake, this is crucial. Do not forget to reload.